Whether you're playing against the offensive, defensive, or the controlling and counter-attacking player, I'm going to share my do's and don'ts to play against these different player attributes. Okay, let's start with the offensive player. So typically, the offensive player loves speed, they have a big smash, and they love to control the net. These players are players like Ginting, Li Shifeng, or Carolina Marin. So what I obviously would like to avoid against these players is giving them the opportunity to play their big smash, because then I know I'm in trouble. So what these type of players like to do is get to the net, play a beautiful spin so they can get their lift, and then they're able to play their big smash. So what is the answer and what is the key to beat these players? It's impossible to play a match without playing lifts to the rear court or clears to the rear court. So you need to ensure that you have the right length and the right height. 2 flat lifts or 2 short lifts are just serving these players exactly what they want. So I need you to push your awareness, push your court positioning towards the net. I want you to reach the shuttles at the net as high as possible, because that means you're controlling the game and you're controlling the pace. Here's a general rule of thumb for you. As you can see in the clip, if I'm meeting the shuttle below the net, that actually means I'm not meeting it early enough. I focused on the net, but generally I want you to be aggressive. Your offense is the best defense against this type of player.
Did you know that Basic Feather is also a badminton brand? If you need a racket, check out our website, basicfeather.com. We provide international shipping and players in more than 30 countries are playing with our rackets. Maybe it's time for you to get on the Basic Feather trend as well? Alright, back to the video.
And the last thing I want you to consider playing against these players is not playing your net shot too tight to the net. I want you to play the long net drops. Because if you play your net drops too tight to the net, you give them the perfect opportunity to spin, and then you are forced to play the lift and the big smash will come. So instead, I want you to play these longer net drops to the net. In my opinion, long net drops mean shots that are crossing the service line. The long net drops makes it so much harder for your opponent to do the spin, and even if they manage to do it, the spin will actually reduce in the air because the time in the air is much longer than when they are spinning it tight to the net. At minimum, this gives you the chance to play a proper lift. So remember, quality on your shots to the rear court, get to the net early and play longer net drops to the net. These are really your keys to beat an offensive player. Okay, next one, how to beat the defensive player. This type of player is typically someone in a physical good condition. They love the basic shots like clear and drops and so forth, and they never do unforced errors. A player like Kodai Naroka is probably the player who describes this type of player the best. Okay, so here's the tactic to beat this defensive player. Number 1, changing the pace in the rally. The worst thing you can do against these players is playing long rallies with them and following their pace. Unless you're in really good shape, they'll slowly break you and you'll slowly play more and more unforced errors. See if you can find an opportunity to change the pace against these players, whether it's in your footwork or whether it's in your racket action. When you do this, you'll definitely create some hesitation and also some uncertainty on what you are going to play. Another thing that you need to remember against these players is accepting that you need to be patient against them. Their shot quality is probably quite consistent, and that means you need to earn the opportunity to win the rallies. You won't win any easy points against them. So the more unforced errors you are playing, the more gold you're simply serving. Remember that you don't need to create all the winners against them. If you have patience and follow my tip number 1, I promise you opportunities will arise. The last thing that I would recommend is trying to get them into some flat exchanges. often these players don't have a great racket action. They just like to play the basic shots to the four corners. So by getting them into some flat exchanges, you might be able to win some points that are slightly easier than those long, exhausting rallies. Changing the pace, being patient, and flat exchanges, these are the keys, and try them out next time you play against the defensive player. All right, let's move on to the tactics to beat the controlling and counter-attacking player. So these players are tricky ones. They have a solid defense, they have a solid offense, but neither of the two are extraordinary. They are ready to punish all the stupid shots and stupid mistakes that you might do. To me, it's players like Lakshya Sen, Vitisan, or Chen Yufei. So the first thing I want you to do is noticing what they're best at. They all have a preference of offensive or defensive playing style. So once you figure out if they prefer an attacking game or defensive game, I want you to go back to the video and listen to the tips on how to beat these different playing styles. And another thing I want you to do when you're playing against these counter-attacking players is to use your variations. Sometimes I want you to take the initiative, so go for the big smash, take the net, change the pace, all these things. And sometimes I want you to give them the initiative, so that means taking the pace out of the game, playing some high lifts, playing some high clears. So where I want your focus to be is constantly mixing it up between being offensive and being defensive, because that means that they aren't able to recognize your game. If and when these players do recognize your game plan, it's really difficult playing against them because they'll always use it against you, making you one step behind in the rally. I remember a time against Tommy Sugiyato where I wasn't able to mix up between being offensive and defensive. And I can just say that I was being sent off the court fairly quickly. So my personal experience from Tommy Sugiyato and the controlling and the counter-attacking player is really that I need the variations, otherwise I'm gonna lose. The next thing I want you to remember playing against these controlling and counter-attacking players is being careful of when you play your cross shots. It's important not to play these cross shots when I'm out of balance, because players like these eat it for breakfast. It's like egg and bacon for them. So my advice for you is to keep most of your shots straight, and only when you're in balance, you play your cross ones. So the key things against these controlling and counter-attacking players is to identify if they prefer being in offense or in defense, mix up your variations, and being careful of when you play your cross shots. So we have reached the end of the video, and I've shared some different tactics to beat players with different player attributes. These are of course slightly generalized because badminton isn't always black and white, but it's a really good starting point. I hope you liked the video, and I would deeply appreciate if you subscribe to this YouTube channel. And of course remember, the court is a canvas for your journey. See you next time.